Hello, thank you for coming. My name is Marisol Cortez. I am a writer and a community-based scholar in San Antonio. And the poems that I want to read are, I wrote kind of alongside another project that I did, a writing project, a research project, about the displacement of a mobile home community in San Antonio that happened in 2014. So the poem, that report came out of the organizing that happened, that the residents did to keep their homes from being removed. And then after people were removed, we began the process of interviewing the displaced families to be able to kind of track where they went, what happened to them, how they were impacted by being forced out of their homes. And as we were interviewing people and as I was writing the report, I found that there were certain stories that just, the only way to really capture them or to document them was to write a poem. It couldn't be documented kind of in a more scholarly way that we wanted to be able to present the data. We decided, the group, Vecinos de Mission Trails was the group that I was working with, and we ultimately decided not. The original draft of the report had the poems, and it kind of staggered poetry with the data, but we decided not to include the poems in the report that we presented to the city because we were worried that it wouldn't be taken seriously. And so for me, kind of the poems became a kind of irreducible problem. What do we do with poetry, right? And kind of so more broadly, for me the question is how does poetry, how do poetic forms of knowledge or activism or analysis exist alongside organizing and scholarship, or can it, So the first poem kind of speaks to that. It's called Preface, No Poems Allowed. Let's start with the numbers. 51 interviews with 62 residents of 51 households, almost half of those displaced from Mission Trails mobile home community, when the city of San Antonio decided that luxury apartments would be, in the parlance of planners, the highest and best use for that site. And what follows is poems I wrote alongside or in between or beside or underneath the work of something legible as research. Who were the displaced? 86% Mexicano or Mexican American, 56% of households making $20,000 or less a year, 43% Spanish dominant, 52% immigrant, 45% children under 18, which you can read online and should read online, and I can give you the URL if you really want to understand San Antonio, whose own inaugural poet laureate Carmen Tafoya said recently of a memoir penned by a relative, I think they were hoping to document this so thoroughly it could not be disproven. Same here. Interviews revealed four main impacts of displacement. First, on housing security. 22% experienced a period of homelessness. 43% were forced to move more than once. By the time of the interview, only 28% were settled economically and housing-wise. 14% were settled, but only after homelessness or multiple moves. 58% were unsettled still because of problems with their new location. But if you read the report on Mission Trails, please imagine that these next poems are sandwiched between every section of painstaking scholarship, staggered between the history, the theory, the data. Please mentally reinsert them for me because they had to be cut in the end. Because, second, on health. 3 residents died following displacement. 2 elderly women, 1 man from suicide. 21% experienced health impacts requiring hospitalization. 33% experienced a worsening of chronic conditions. 27% developed new health conditions. 57% reported mental health impacts. 5 cases severe enough to be disabling, hospitalizable, or fatal. 20% reported health impacts on children, pregnancies, newborns. Because we worried that if poetry canoodled too closely with the witness of numbers, the reality of numbers, the tragedy and defiance of numbers. It would give the city one more reason to discredit our work, or worse, it would make the story of Mission Trails and the people who lived there about me as the teller, about the poet, too personal, too individual, when the truth is that our work was collective. Third, on economic security. Relocation assistance promised in theory, $7,200. Average amount of relocation assistance actually received, $4,451. 77% of households paying out of pocket for moving expenses. 47% of households reporting an increase in housing costs after displacement. And because I trusted the strategy, I agreed, no poems allowed. However, the reality is, what the research ultimately found is that when fighting the willed disappearance of bodies with writing, you will find that some bodies cannot be found, and some stories can never be looked at straight on, and some lives will resist documentation. Where did they end up in the end? Of 70 households known to us, 51% kept their homes, meaning another half lost their homes. 19% became renters after owning. 17% bought a new house, mostly by taking on new debt. 4 households were living with friends or family at the time of the interview, homeless, in other words. 3 were able to access public housing. 1 purchased an RV and moved to Corpus. 2 others moved out of Texas altogether. One moved their trailer to an approved park, but actually lives in their place of business. And 36 households, we just don't know. And when you stumble upon the presence of such absences, that is when poetry becomes the only way of speaking what has actually happened. Let's see. This next one is called Interview at the H-E-B. I ran into her at the H-E-B. I had some $1 cent-free dish soap in my hand. I had Xochitl on my sleeve, begging for the toy aisle. ¿Conoces a mi niña? I asked, forgetting all those meetings where I had no choice but to bring her. Of course she knew her, of course. Y estos son mis jóvenes, dijo ella. 2 beautiful youth, slender as river canes swaying, solemn and polite, close-pressed and hair gleaming, silent guards and protectors. ¿Y cómo has estado? Pues hay un ingeniero que ojalá, quizás, pero no, ya no luces, ya no agua. Pero ¿cómo beben? ¿Cómo le duchan? They shower her daughters, I think she says. But my Spanish is so coarse, I hear in large strokes of the brush house painting with the roller, missing nuance and detail. We have to buy bottled water, she says, nodding to the bottom of her cart. That much I understand. I haven't seen her for months, but I've been thinking about her. She stopped taking our calls, needing to move on after the move outside city limits. Through the younger son, I ask if she might be willing to be interviewed. I want to make sure she understands exactly what I'm asking and why. I want to make sure I understand exactly what she says. I can't right now, though, she says. To revisit what happened to us is just too painful. They will never know the damage they have done. I saw that interview they did on Univision with El Señor. My God, he was living in his van. It made me so sad, so I can't. I have to just continue best I can. Yo entiendo. And I wish I could bridge the unbreachable distance of language. I wish I could tell her all that is in my heart, that I wish I could fix it, that I wish I was not like everyone else, sorry but unable to do anything at all. But I am left with my tongue flapping like a fish that gasps in my mouth. I'm going to read one more. It's the last poem in the series of the Mission Trails poems, and it's called Redbird. The interview is over, the recording off, and I'm about to close up my laptop when, oh, she says, a cardinal? So I leave it open. It is a cardinal there, a redbird on my screensaver paired with a small brown female, A photo torn from magazine and doctored to look like two hoodlum birds, one with liberty spikes, the other with dog collar necklace, both of them smoking, both with nose rings or beak rings, I guess, both with Angry Bird eyebrows drawn slantingly downward in menace. It's a joke pic that hung over my desk at work. Bad birds, B-Y-R-D-Z, I wrote above their heads. And she says, my dad loved redbirds. See a redbird, and she licks her thumb, draws 3 small crosses in the fat of her palm, like that. Means money's coming, good luck. After my dad died, I see a redbird and I think of him. Then, when my mom passed, now I see them together. The male bright red, the female small and light. And then, one day, when we were moving, the trailer, you know, we hear this tapping. I look around. You hear that? On the window, except windows were way high up on the trailer. No one could have reached that high. So I hear it again. Where is it coming from? Then I see it. It's a cardinal there at the window, tapping. People say, if you see a redbird, it means someone from your past come to visit you. Thank you.